Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. And what do we have today? Well, we have the official release of Oath coming in later on at 2 p.m. That means that we have another episode of Should You Core Oath Edition. We need to ring the manager because Karen's coming to Marvel Strike Force. Karen Page, of course. Had to make the joke. I feel like there's going to be a lot more jokes in the future about Karen Page and just Karen. So she is obviously going to be a very important member of the Night Stalker team, especially in raids. But I know that there's going to be a big question that people are asking about: do I need Oath? But also, do I need the Night Stalkers? Because I think that, especially with the Odin event going, I'm calling it the event, the Dark Dimension 8 that's ongoing right now. And as people get Odin, and even some people with Mephisto, are probably questioning whether or not you actually need this team at all. So I'm going to try and cover a lot of that here today, and I'm going to be looking at some perspectives depending on if you're an end game player, but even if you're like a mid game player, like my alt account, is going to be someone who's probably going to need this team. So if you're ready to go, let's boil this down. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over the character kit, because I feel like people often forget what characters do, right? Like when there's a gameplay embargo or whatever by the envoys, it's usually weeks before a character particularly comes out. So I do want to cover the kit once again for Oath. Now, once again, her tags are Hero City, Mystic, Controller, Vampire. It's not really that big of a deal right now, and Night Stalker, of course. I do want to start with her passive, and then we're going to go back up to the basic, because the passives are really what's really important with these characters, and why I think Oath is going to be a very important character, not just for, I'm going to say, mid gamers who are wanting to use them in raids, but also other places where you can take advantage of using her. So on spawn, on offense, fill speed bar by 5% for self and all allies. Now, this is essentially the Kang passive, right? Where it has to be particularly on offense, but it is available plug and play. So you can use her with whoever you want and still get that. And so that alone, I think, is going to give her some interesting value, because there's only so many Kangs. And because of her stats, right? The stats are going to be really, we're going to take a look at the stats after the kit here. Why she's just going to be like a better version of that, because when you have her built up, she's going to live longer than possibly a Kang, depending on where you're using Kang. But just in general, right? Like, she's going to sustain herself just fine. Now, on this character or any Night Stalker allies turn end. So this is going to happen on her, but it's going to happen more within the team itself. Attack the most injured enemy with exposed for 240% piercing. That's actually a lot, honestly. As far as quote unquote pings go, that is a lot of damage. And reduce the duration of all positive effects by 1, and this does decay Safeguard. So that's really important if you use it on, say, Gladiator, or hell, any of the characters that have Safeguard. You're eventually going to be able to decay their Safeguard mechanic. And this is available outside of raids. So that's kind of interesting. Like, if you were to use it, unfortunately, if you're using her outside the team, it's only going to really happen on her turn. So that's the only side issue. But the team itself seems to be, at least within the full unit, a pretty good PvP team, I think, from what I've been seeing, though. So who knows? I'm not huge into PvP, and that's not exactly why I want her. But anyways, in raids, copy and clear 2 random negative effects from self and all Night Stalker allies to that exposed enemy. So that is nice. I think it's basically a transfer, right? Copy to clear 2 random negative from yourself and to that exposed enemy, right? It's copying it to the exposed enemy, like a vampire thing. In raids, apply regeneration to self and all Night Stalker allies. So, but this is all at the end on this character or any Night Stalker allies turn. So this is going to be really useful in raids, because there's just going to be a whole slew of regens going up every single turn. So while she's a controller, she's basically the support for the team, even though Agatha does have some healing on her on her ultimate. That's basically the only time that Agatha heals, really. So there's going to be a lot of extra sustain coming from Oath in the raids, which is going to be really important. Now, this is outside of raids. On enemy death, generate 1 ability energy for self and all Night Stalker allies who are not at full at the start of the turn. Kind of like a death pool mechanic. This is going to be very important. It's not in raids. However, it's going to be very important for raids, for when you start killing people. And then this part in raids fills speed bar by 25% for self and all Night Stalker allies to keep yourself going. Really, really important as well, I think. And then in raids specifically, the energy battery stuff, the on spawn, right? 6 energy is a lot. I don't think that's a full ultimate for Agatha, but it's gonna be pretty close. I think she has an energy of 10. But if you're hitting Mystics with her ult, then there's a good chance that this should be good enough. But for everyone else and their skills, it should be good enough. And then on enemy controller, apply Safeguard to the team. This is so important when there's like a Gore, right? So before a Gore uses their ultimate, this is going to go in any other controller type characters because there's a lot of flipping of buffs in the Orchestrate Mystic section. So, we're still not even through the basics. So I thought I was done. It's silly me. Attack primary target for 260% piercing and apply bleed and heal block to the primary. In raids, apply exposed to the primary target. This is similar to Vol in a way, I suppose, but Vol's basic, I think, applies it outside of it, right? Outside of raids. When forced to attack an ally, I think this is on a lot of the kits, does not apply exposed or any negative effects to Night Stalker allies. So any mind controls, that kind of thing, it's not really that big of a deal. Cannot be counterattacked or dodged. It's not unavoidable, but it can't be dodged. This is really nice because it's on a cooldown of 4. Steal health for 20% health from the primary target and apply ability block for 2 turns, but then it's also 40% health steal in raids. So this is really going to chew away at Gladiator when you really need it. And it also does another hit, like basically a damage hit after the health steal. Primary and adjacent targets for 300% piercing, 2 bleed and heal block. So again, really good there and cannot be dodged. I'm trying to think if there's a lot of characters that have evade up on there. There's like nice Nightcrawler is on the nodes. I'm just trying to think of all the characters that have evade or anything that would dodge. A Cardiac Assault, the ultimate here, attack all enemies for 320% piercing, apply exposed, 2 bleed, and heal block to the primary target. In raids, apply an additional bleed and trauma to the primary target, so that's nice. And then 3 bleed, heal block, trauma to all other enemies. So this is AoE trauma. Fortunately, it's only 1 turn, but I guess that's okay. And then exposed to the primary target. This attack gains 20% damage against enemies with safeguards. So it seems that you do kind of want to hit this into I guess it is available on turn 1, but I don't know if you would actually land the exposed on a gladiator on turn 1. So I think you might want to do the special first and knock its health down, and then use the ult on the second turn. That seems to be what they want to do, and it cannot be blocked, counterattacked, or dodged. So it's a very powerful kit. I wouldn't say it's entirely raid based. There's a lot of raid stuff in there, right? So in terms of whether or not you want whether or not you want Oath is going to be dependent on your progress in the game. I want to get Oath for my alt account. I am pretty far from Mephisto. My main account, however, has Mephisto, and I'm pretty close to getting Odin. So for that reason, I don't know how much I, quote unquote, need Night Stalkers for raids for my main account. But for mid-game players and people who are kind of getting into the Mystic raids, don't have Bifrost or anything like that, those are the people who kind of want to target this team right now. I think for the rest of us who are kind of towards my main account level, can probably wait a little bit as far as the slow drip, and we don't officially know yet who is getting the 100 shards or the less than 30-day sort of event for the team, because we don't have anyone yet for Night Stalkers. We're just getting one for Nimrod actually next week, if you guys followed my data mine video from earlier on, my last video. Now, I did really quickly want to take a look at Oath's gear, though, in terms of her unique. So she is running Bloodborne Nanobots. That's the same as Gore. Also, it is the same as Blade. So there is a lot of repeating uniques, especially lately. So between Gore, Blade, and Oath, there's a lot of these Bloodborne Nanobots. So make sure that you are keeping up to date with that. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to go over to the stats table and see how Oath stacks up. Now, I'm just going to max out the ISO classes here. I'm just going to do Raider, Purple 3. We're just maxing out the stats. It's not that big of a deal. I know you're not going to get a 3 diamond. That's not really that important. I just want to see where she ranks as far as other characters. So Oath is, let's zoom in one more time. Oath is number 8 in health there. Pretty close to the new Scientist Supreme and Blade as well, actually, in Ares too. So they're all in the same category of like maximum health there, which is still pretty strong. So like top 6 through 9 there in the game there. Damage-wise, Oath is number 5, which is actually tied with Ares and also with Lady Deathstrike right now. And we know how powerful Lady Deathstrike is. So that's a really, really, really powerful mechanic there to have that much damage with a lot of her different kit abilities too. I think that'd be pretty good. Her armor in there is going to be in the no, she's not in the top. Oh, there she is. She's number 10 there in armor, but she is that's armor right there. So she's tied with Nimrod, which is interesting, and Omega Sentinel. Actually, a lot of these characters and Agatha. So that's still pretty good. I mean, as far as she's not a tank, right? You know, she's kind of a supporty damage dealer type. And so those are pretty good numbers there. Her focus is number 8, so she doesn't have actually she's tied with a bunch of characters. They seem to have like pretty much the same numbers. Agatha's pretty much the same actually. So all the way through top 4, all the way down to Moon Knight at 9. So they all kind of have similar focuses there, but it's still very powerful stats, right? We're not seeing a huge climb though this patch compared to Orcus, because I think Orcus did have on average higher stats than the Annihilators did. And resistance, oh, I didn't expect her to be anywhere near there. She's actually 16. So she's in the top, other than resist, she's like top 10 of every single other stat. So she is a pretty strong character for stats, which is good. Like that's kind of what we're seeing. Of course, we're not going to have her there, right? We're going to have her probably at 3 or 4 yellow. That's kind of what we can expect over the next 30 days, depending on how things go or whether or not you core or get lucky on a jackpot, that kind of thing. But nonetheless, you know, it's very impressive. What's her speed again? I'm not. Let's probably need to search that. Oath is 39 at 126. So she's tied with speed here with Silver Surfer, Lizard, Icarus, Nova, Moonstone, Fire, and a bunch of these other characters. So 126 is pretty reasonable. It's not super fast, but it does place her in a pretty decent position. She also gets plus 5% speed bar. So you can see that, okay, Hank gets on turns on spawn speed up. So that's probably a bit of a cheat there. But still, Oath's 126 plus 5%. I mean, we put her in the 130-ish range. So that's not too bad there, and we'll be able to get her and the team a little bit ahead of some of the other characters. And Blade's 127 too. So that's nice to know. And I forgot to talk about this when we were discussing the kit, but I believe that probably as far people are going to ask what ISOs, if you do decide to go for Oath, what ISOs should you run? I think if you're wanting to use her in raids, I would consider a striker ISO. And the reason for that is for the same reason that I kind of like running Vol as a striker, is because in raids apply exposed to the primary target with the basic. So that means a follow-up attack with striker is going to apply exposed in your other skills as well, especially the ones that don't do exposed, which would be like the special, right? Even though the alt does do exposed anyways, but if you're using that too. Also, her damage stat is pretty high. So I think it's a lot of piercing damage. So I think it's a pretty solid call out there. And that's what I would recommend with Oath. I also want to talk a little bit more about what we can expect for the phase 1 orb for Oath before we get to the whole should you core part of the video or the conclusion of the character. And it seems, I mean, it should start later on today, right? That's what it sounds like, that she will be taking over from, and I think it's the Night Stalker Nocturne here, that she's basically taking over from that daily Nimrod milestone, which is like spending your campaign energy and doing your raids to get 1 orb a day. Now it does say that every 20 Oath Night Stalker orbs open gives you 1 guaranteed core orb for Oath. Now I don't know if we're getting only 1 of these core orbs per day, because obviously the milestone has not gone live yet. So I will assume that it's going to be as bad of a slow drip as Nimrod, which might tell us something, because Nimrod has gone over a month when it comes to getting him unlocked. So if Oath is someone that you want to have unlocked, you probably might want to think about doing it through the cores, because you might not see her for some time. I don't have a feeling that she is going to be the character that's less than 30 days. I still think it's Blade, but it also could be Man Thing, and that's something to consider about coring, because I know this is not a Man Thing video, and we'll do a separate one when he comes out, but we do need to think about that, you know, he is going to be coming in the next 7 to 10 days. So if you're spending your cores on Oath, is it better to do it on Oath, or is it better to do it on Man Thing? And if you need Oath for the raids, I do think that it's better to spend your cores on Oath. So my alt account has a maxed out Blade. I cored for Blade. I thought maybe because I don't have Mephisto that it was going to help me out. It didn't. Blade did absolutely nothing. And it was actually embarrassing that he did nothing for me. Like it changed nothing. So I think that Oath is going to, if you're in a situation like my alt account who is running like Orcus D1, D2, that kind of thing, and you don't have Mephisto, I think that Oath is going to be basically required to use the team in raids. Now, Man Thing is going to be very important for that boss node. Whether or not you absolutely need him to clear it, though, is another thing, because basically he just invalidates the boss node here when it comes to both the Void Knight character and Gladiator, because of this part of the passive here. He also does, if you want to use this team outside of raids, he is also necessary. So whether or not you should save your cores for Man Thing rather than Oath is going to depend on what you're wanting to do with this team. If you want to raid with this team, then you absolutely need to core Oath. In my opinion, she is going to be one of the most required characters for the team to function in raids. If you are trying to use the team outside of raids and do something else with it, I think that Man Thing might be a little bit better, because you get the speed for the team, which is just a flat speed bar mechanic. It's a flat speed boost. It's not a speed bar mechanic, which actually has become more of a problem in certain game modes because as more characters block this mechanic out. So this is good. Man Thing's passive will help the team get ahead when it comes to things like PvP, right? When you're going to need that extra speed percentage. So I still think that Oath is worth the cores if you do not have Mephisto and Odin. And if you're someone who's rounding the bend also for Odin, like my main account, I would probably hold off, but that's just me. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But if you are someone like my alt account with a mid tier sort of roster, then I absolutely think that Oath is worth coring. So that's going to be the end of my verdict, and it's just going to depend on where you're at in Marvel Strike Force right now. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you thought I missed something or something I should talk about in the next one when we do Man Thing. Otherwise, until next time, everybody stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.